are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 186 of the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan Larck, PAYTON on Twitter. And, of course, we are here to talk to you about the Auburn A-Day weekend that is right around the corner. By right around the corner, I mean starting tomorrow, really, because the A-Day weekend is all about all the sports going on at one time. Auburn baseball, Auburn softball, and, of course, Auburn football spring game going on Saturday. And, of course, we have the schedule for A-Day this weekend. Just to get right into it at 9 a.m., starting off all A-Day festivities. Takeo Spikes is going to have his Tiger Trail induction at that time, and you get to buy tickets for it. Check out the Auburn website for all of that information. At 10 o'clock, Auburn's going to have their Fan Fest at the Green Space. 10:45 on to Victory autograph session. You got 11:20. You have alumni flag football. 11:45 is Tiger Walk at 1 o'clock p.m. A-Day begins. Its team takes the field. Be live on SEC Network Plus, which is a shocker because I was told that this game was not going to be televised, so it is going to be on SEC Network Plus. 1:56 is going to be the Eagle Flight, and then at 2 o'clock the team scrimmage starts at 2 p.m. And of course, all of us will be in attendance for the game. And Hugh Freeze did announce this week during a press conference what the A-Day game is going to look like. A-Day is going to be a scrimmage of sorts because the defense, of course, it's going to be a scrimmage of sorts. I don't know why I said that. Defense is going to start off 27-0 to start off the game, and basically the offense is going to have 4 10-minute quarters to put up basically 28 points. But they have to do that without giving up any defensive touchdowns or blocked field goals or anything of the sort. They're basically have 40 minutes to score 28 points while giving the defense chances to still add to their lead as well. So should be a lot of fun. We're expecting a lot of great stuff from this A-Day. I don't know how much of we're not going to see a lot of the offense really, but I will say Auburn fans I've heard are really excited to see a few people more than most. That one of those, of course, being Cam Coleman, who Auburn fans are just ecstatic to watch play in an Auburn uniform, and I can just say I am too. Because I am very excited about what Cam Coleman can do for the Auburn Tigers as a true freshman. And, of course, Auburn is just a month away from getting their other recruits. Perry Thompson even came out and tweeted out that he's 1 month away, posted a picture in his Auburn uniform. So, going to be a lot of fun when all the Freeze 5 get on campus all together. But right now, yes, the 8A, 40 minutes, score 28 points for the offense, and that starts at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And, of course, at 3 o'clock, at 3:30, the Auburn baseball will host Tennessee right across the street. So, before we get into basketball and baseball and all that stuff, I want to let y'all know that Payton Thorne is still the starting quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. Hugh Freeze announced in a press conference that Payton Thorne still has the lead and probably is going to still have the lead throughout the summer and starting off in the fall. But he did come out and mention that the lead is not that far ahead from like Holden Garner and I would assume just Holden Garner right off the bat. But right now you're looking at he mentioned that Walker White isn't going to get to start unless something happens crazy. But that's just because he's so young and you're just trying to get him educated on the game and get him ready for the college and the SEC level. But right now, Payton Thorne is going to be your starting quarterback for the Auburn Tigers in 2024. And he's going to be your starting quarterback for A-Day this weekend. So you're going to see the ones run with Payton Thorne. And didn't really say who was going to back him up, but also I believe I can't remember who exactly asked. It might have been Mike G. but I'm not too sure if it was, about what the format will look like for the teams, whether it's going to be the 1v2s or versus and the 2v1s, or the 1v1s and the 2v2s, or some. No, he didn't really give an answer about that. He kind of just said it's going to just kind of go as they feel, because they're just going to sub in and out units, just back and forth. So don't really know what teams are going to see in, and I guess that's a smart way of not letting uh people be able to watch film on them early and see what units they're running with. I think we can all pretty much assume that Cam Coleman's going to be running with the ones. But right off the bat, Peyton Thorne will be your starting quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. I just want to keep saying that because, of course, not a lot of there's still fans that are still against that. But until there's a better quarterback proven to be on the roster, because of course we don't know about Walker White and Hank Brown still on the roster, and then Holden Garner. Until a true quarterback is established, or until this team can get right over the summer and the fall, once a starter is established. But right off the bat, give Peyton Thorne a chance. Do not discredit what the season can look like with Peyton Thorne, because if Peyton Thorne hits the ceiling, Auburn could win. I think I heard the Warboard about it. If Peyton Thorne were to throw for like 2,700 yards, I think Mike G said that 10 wins is completely on the table, which I believe is true. If Peyton Thorne plays at his ceiling, Auburn doesn't struggle as much as fans believe they will, because you're getting a veteran guy who has played at this level before, has SEC experience now. Didn't have the best experience last year, but also didn't have the full job last year until halfway through the season. So again, give Peyton Thorne a chance. I understand. He didn't have a great year last year, but name one quarterback on the team that did last year. That's as simple as that. So give Peyton Thorne a chance. Enjoy him as a quarterback, and I guess until he just plays himself out of it, which I don't believe he will, because I do think right now Peyton Thorne is the best quarterback on the Auburn football roster. But with that concludes all the football news that we have for right now. I'm gonna go ahead and get into basketball, because basketball had a couple of headliners happen yesterday. Of course, as you've all heard, Trey Donaldson has entered the NCAA transfer portal. Last year for the Tigers, averaged 6.7 points a game, had 2.4 rebounds and 3.2 assists. For, of course, the 4th-seeded Auburn Tigers, SEC champion in the SEC tournament, Auburn Tigers. I believe he led the team. He led the team in assists last year. And he was a main contributor to the team, especially with Aden Holloway not being as prepared as Auburn fans thought he was at first, and then he kind of hit a slump, and then he got back into it, and then he found a role later on. But there were a lot of fans out there that were saying that Aden Holloway was just going to be the one to transfer, and weren't expecting this to happen at all. I mean, this took me aback whenever I saw it happen. I'm not one of the ones that was expecting Aden Holloway to be the one to transfer, because I think Aden Holloway still has a lot of stuff that he can accomplish here for the Auburn Tigers. But Trey Donaldson is a guy that you're going to miss. And I believe everyone has agreement that it's going to be a player that you're really, really going to miss. His ability to just in transition just be the fastest dude on the court. His court vision was awesome. He never really was outside of the Iowa game from I guess 2 seasons ago now, where he kind of just took over the game and just had the back-to-back threes and made a lot of great plays during that Iowa game. But never really was the guy who would take over the scoreboard or the box score this past year. He had a couple of games where he kind of went off, but overall, never really was that guy. But a solid guard, nonetheless, for the Tigers, and a guy who's going to be sorely missed alongside Katie Johnson, because Auburn is going to look different at the guard room. At this point, I believe Aden Holloway will stay. Auburn's still targeting a guard just to have a guy go to play alongside Holloway. Denver Jones still available, so you got your shooting guard. You got Todd Pettiford coming in, who's going to be playing at 2. I think BP has already stated that Todd Pettiford will be playing at the shooting guard position. You're going to have Ja'Kai Howard coming in alongside one Chad Baker-Mazara, who, of course, has announced that he has unfinished business for the Auburn Tigers for 2024-2025 season. During last year for the Tigers, Chad Baker-Mazara had 10 points, averaged 10 points a game, had 3.7 rebounds, and 2.2 assists. He was also third on the team in points per game. And CBM was a guy who once he finally started getting starting minutes, there was a clear difference in what the Auburn offense looked like. And I know how the season ended, but you cannot hate on what CBM accomplished, or you not hate on CBM as a person, because he is the definition of what Auburn basketball should be. He is he's a crazy, smooth shooter who can take over a game if you let him. And of course, his defense is unmatched. But right now, it looks like Auburn's gonna have at least I think 2 open spots right now, or 3 open spots, because we don't know how Janai Broom's going to pan, or where he's going to go. I do believe he's going to go to the draft. So 3 open spots available on a 10-man roster, or a 10-man rotation, because it looks like, so as I said, Aden Holloway, and then you're going to get a transfer guard to play the 1. You have Denver Jones and, of course, Todd Pettiford. Then the 3, you're going to have CBM and Ja'Kai Howard. At the 4, you're going to have Chaney Johnson, and then you're going to probably get a transfer there. And then the center position, you assume you might have Dylan Cardwell back for another year. And then you'll have a potential transfer right there for the center position. So 3 open spots for the Auburn basketball team. Gonna miss Trey Donaldson a lot. Can't lie. He was a key. He was a contributor to his defense. He was one of the out of all the guards. He was probably, I want to say, he had this is where he was better than Denver Jones, but I think he was like the 3rd best defensive guard, just because Denver Jones was lights out. KD Johnson was absolutely insane, and then Trey Donaldson was just too athletic for people to just get by him like that. But of course, gonna be a guy who's gonna be sorely missed on this team. Um, and I wish him the best of luck wherever he goes. Him and KD Johnson both. But before we get into Auburn baseball and softball and gymnastics, I want to let y'all know, thank y'all for tuning in to the College Loop podcast. If you're watching on the YouTube, what's up? If you're listening on the podcast, what is up, everybody? Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts on Peyton Thorne being basically announced as a starting quarterback for the time being. What do you guys think of the 8-8 format? Do you think it's weird? Do you think it's fun? And of course, leave your thoughts on the Trey Donaldson transferring and the Chad Baker-Mazara retention. And of course, if you are looking for other ways that you can support the show, we have merch. We have our very own College Loop sponsor, or College Loop branded Feeling Loopy t-shirts, sponsored by the War Report Podcast Network. Go check it out on the warreport.com. Shirts only $25. Most comfortable shirt you are ever going to wear in your entire life, and that is 100% guarantee. Comes in 5 different colorways, and believe me, it is, again, the most comfortable shirt that you are ever going to wear in your entire life. Now, Auburn baseball and Auburn softball both won their midweeks, but are looking at tough games ahead, really. So starting off with baseball, last night against the UAB Blazers, Auburn fell down in the 3rd, 4-2, and then 2 scoreless innings, and then Auburn went on an 8-0 run from the 6th inning to the 8th inning, and ended up winning 10-4. Zach Crotchfelt earns the win, but this game led to a lot of doubt on this baseball team this year. There were a lot of people that are saying Auburn sucks. They've got to come to terms with that very soon. And that was early on. That was after in the 3rd, whenever a single scored 2 UAB runners for the 4-2 lead. And then the 6th inning came around. Christian Hall homered. And then in the 8th inning, holy crap, you had Bobby Barrels himself hit a home run. You had Cooper Weiss have an RBI single. You had Ike Irish have a RBI or 2 RBI double, and then you had Coop McMurray have a RBI single, and then Bobby Pierce had a an RBI single as well to give Auburn the 10 runs, and to give them really 8 runs going on in just that 8th inning, or 7 runs in the 8th inning. Resilience. We've seen this team fight. This team is all on board with fighting at the last minute. And it worked out against UAB because UAB, not the greatest team. Auburn shouldn't have been behind regardless. But again, it is very hard to get a gauge on how good this team is, especially because they just have the worst schedule in baseball. I mean, another top 4 team is coming to the Plains, and 24-5 Tennessee, who their pitching rotation, their starting guys are very good. But they're averaging. They have their Their ERA is kind of high. But for what they lack in shutting down runs, they make up for in the fact that they are absolutely demolishing the ball. Right now, as it stands, they have 73 home runs as a team. They have 2 guys batting over 400. They have 2 360s. They have a 330, a 320, and a 316. Then they go down to a 280, and their lowest in the starting 9 is a 250. So they're really good at hitting the ball. And this weekend is going to be a true test to that Auburn weekend rotation, because going forward, you're going to need it is time to start getting series wins. And I know you've played the hardest schedule in the country. No one else has played more top 5 teams than during weekend series than Auburn has, I believe. But it's time, and it's happened before. I mean, remember last year the Auburn team wasn't something that we could like scream to the rooftops about, but they didn't let LSU come into a Jordan Hare Stadium and sweep them. And it's something that's going to start happening, or people are going to start panicking. I'm not in the panic boat yet. Tarr very much is, and a lot of other people I've talked to are very much hitting the panic button on the season. But it's time to start proving that you're an SEC contender. And it's time to start showing that you are capable of taking down these SEC opponents, like Tennessee, who again can knock the cover off of a baseball, and they are going to hit it over the fence. It's going to be up to the bullpen, which I'm pretty assuming is Carson Myers and Jogo and Chase Alsop, who will be leading the charge for the Tigers this weekend. It's time. It is time to start locking down. It's time to start shutting down runs. It's time to start It's time to stop falling behind early. And I don't know how likely it is to be this weekend. I would love it to be this weekend, but it's just that schedule is just so dadgum brutal that it is really hard to get ecstatic about Auburn playing another top 5 team. Because I mean, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and now Tennessee. Auburn is going to have a little bit of a break versus Kentucky, because I don't believe Kentucky's a top 10 team in the country. But that's next week. So it is time for Auburn baseball to start stealing some wins that they very much need to get. Auburn softball, on the other hand, also won their midweek game. They won theirs in 5 innings after Maddie Penta, Annabelle Weidra, and Chubby Lowe all combined for a perfect game. All 3 of those girls having an absolute great game. Chubby Lowe and AB only played for 1 inning. Maddie Penta played for 3. But this was a game where Auburn looked like they found a sense of offense, but this is something that we expected to happen, especially against Sanford. So Amelia Larck had a 3 RBI home run. Kika McCrary had a nice little home run. She's having a great season over these past 3 games. But Kika McCrary homered for a 2 RBI home run. Nia Peralta hit a nice little RBI double, and Michaela Packer had a 2 RBI triple, which gave Auburn the 8-0 lead as they took down the Sanford Bulldogs, who, again, we talked about it on the Monday show, or the Tuesday show, sorry. Sanford gives up runs. Sanford gives off a lot of runs, and this is something that we pretty much expect to happen because it was a do or die kind of territory. because Auburn's pitchers aren't going to give up runs, and that's something that we've been very adamant about. This team is still very much on the side of we have Maddie Penta. Let's see if we can just win based off of her arm. And it's the game where they did that because Sanford fell behind and couldn't really get back into the game because they aren't the best at hitting the ball, and their pitchers aren't the best at getting the ball across the plate without giving something the batter to hit. And that was something that you saw yesterday. So took down the Sanford Bulldogs 8-0 and are getting ready for their weekend matchups for the War Eagle Classic, where they'll be taking on Louisiana Tech and Georgia Tech. Taking on Louisiana Tech on Friday at 2:00 p.m., taking on Georgia Tech on Friday at 5:00 p.m., and then on Saturday, going to round out the War Eagle Classic by playing Louisiana Tech at 1:00 p.m., and then Georgia Tech at 4:00 p.m. And I just look at both these teams. Both of them have a better record than Auburn. It could also be the case that they didn't have all their games get canceled. Looking at the Louisiana Tech pitching rotation, they have some really good pitchers for Louisiana Tech. Do not sleep on this team. Because Louisiana Tech is currently 23-9 as it stands, but they are currently on a 3-game slide after getting swept by the Liberty Flames just last weekend. But yeah, they are going to be playing against Auburn, and the batting wise, they have a lot of great batters at the top, and then it kind of just slips off at the end. Currently, as it stands, they have 13 home runs on the season. So, not really the team is going to hit the ball over the fence very much, but they do have a girl in Alexis Gilio who has batted a 3.94 throughout this part of the season. Caroline Esom with a 3.51, Alana Rogers with 3.09, Claire Rayleigh with 3.02. Kylie Neal with a 2.74, and then you have a 2.53, a 2.41, a 1.84, and a 1.75 out of that starting 9. And then not really a lot going for them after that. So it should be a game where you should be able to win just because of Maddie Penta, but it's going to be a pitcher's duel. I don't think this game would get out of hand for either side because both teams are very much struggling hitting the ball. This is going to be a good weekend for Auburn softball to figure out their talent very quickly because if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe there's a midweek next week. Never mind, there is Wednesday for UAB. But you have 5 games in between now and when you hit the travel to Baton Rouge to play LSU. It is time to start figuring out what this team is capable of. It is time to look at it as this team can still win games. This team is talented, but it's time to start showing that. And of course, I know that Mickey Dean is on his way out, so the eagerness to win it doesn't seem like it's there for like as much from this team because the season's kind of a wash whenever your coach announced they're going to retire at the end of the year in the middle of the season and the team's not on the hot streak. But it's time to start finding that. It's time to start finding that spark because this is still a season where Auburn could put up a good amount of wins, and they just need to do so by getting their bats hot at the right time. And that's coming from a place of I don't want this to be Maddie Penta's last season. I don't want it to end as it has or as it is. It's time for Auburn to start winning games for both Diamond Sports. And with that, going on to the next games of this weekend series, Georgia Tech is 24-14 in the country. In the record wise, I believe they are not ranked. I don't know why I said in the country. But looking at Georgia Tech, they have a lot of batters in the 300s. They have a 358, a 355, 348, 338, 328, 327, 324, 316. They have a 273, 271, 196, and a 167. But they're also hitting 64 home runs. So getting the ball over the fence a lot for Georgia Tech. And their pitching rotation, no one has an ERA under 3. So could be a game where you're gonna have to slug it out a couple of times. That's gonna be out of the 2 games or out of the 4 games, but out of the 2 teams, Georgia Tech has the most likely chance of beating Auburn strictly because of their fact they have like that star-studded offensive firepower. So I expect Auburn to probably split Georgia Tech, but sweep Louisiana Tech, if that makes sense. So it'd be good to finish out the weekend with 3-1 or 4-0 if they can. Can't be having 2-2s or 1-3s or 0-4s or anything along those lines of a losing or tied record, because you need to start seeing steady improvement from the team. Because that's how these sports work. You got to show steady improvement throughout the entire season as a whole. But it'll be a lot of fun. 8 day weekend's a lot of fun because you get to run the Auburn Gauntlets. You get to go watch football, baseball, and softball all in the same day as well. And now Auburn Gymnastics round out the show are preparing for their 2024 NCAA Regional Championships as they will take on let's see. I mean, I'm trying to find the teams all at once, and I accidentally clicked out of the thing. So give me 1 second as I do that. Give me 2 seconds. But they are going to be in Cal Berkeley and are going to be competing on Friday. So let me pull that up as that is just taking forever to load. So the Tigers will kick off. I'm reading right off the Auburn website. So they are going to be they're going to kick things off on the NCAA Regional second round on Friday, April 5th, and will compete in the night session at 9:00 p.m. Central Standard Time against the number 1 seeded host Cal. They're going to play against Stanford and the winner of the Southern Utah San Jose State play-in. This is going to be a very tough meet, just strictly because it's some of the top teams in the country in Cal. You also have two seed Denver, who's going to be in their afternoon session alongside number 3 UCLA, Arizona State, and Washington. Not a weekend to blink twice about. Auburn is going to have to be on their A game throughout it, and you're looking at Cassie Stevens to lead the team, and she's not far from home, so you're expecting to see a good meet from her. But as a whole, this team has to get right. And I believe they've already announced the rotations, because I think Cassie Stevens was talking about it. And I believe it was as I was reading it earlier. It was. This is not good for me because I just lost it. Starting on the floor and you end on beam. So two of Auburn's best meets to start and end with. And you're gonna have to look at the middle two. Bars and vaults have been two of Auburn's like weakest links, two of the most inconsistent parts of their team as a whole. Need to get those right, because it's now or never on the season. Because you were in the NCAA original tables, you gave yourselves in it all year long. It's time to show teams why you're there. And being the only SEC team there is huge. I can't lie. I believe Auburn just kind of had a rough season at times. I don't say just as a whole, because they definitely did, because they're in the NCAA regionals. Had tough games that didn't go their way because of the fact that SEC is so loaded. And now you're looking at, you have that. You don't have home field. You don't have home court advantage. Cal does. But if you can just if you just get vault and bars down pat, it'd be GG, really. But gonna be a lot of fun to watch again on Friday at 9:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're trying to get up early for the 8A game, well, maybe you don't. Maybe sleep in a tad bit just so you can watch the gymnastics regional championships on, of course, Friday. But that does it for the show today. I'm Dylan Larck, @BoyTank on Twitter. Also on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck, at DYLENLARCK. And of course, you can also find me right here on the College League Podcast, where you should like, comment, and subscribe. You can also find me on the War Report Gaming channel, where I have just recently put up a video doing a Madden rebuild of the Auburn Tigers in the NFL. I scrapped the entire Bengals roster and added as all the Auburn Tigers in the NFL outside of Anders Carlson, just so I didn't have to waste a backup kicker role for him. So yeah, go check that out on the War Report Gaming as well. And of course, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts on Auburn's 8A games or any other thing that we talked about during today's show. And make sure you leave a like and leave high ratings on whatever you are listening to the podcast on, because we are available on YouTube, and of course, you look for the audio versions of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Also have us on social medias as well, on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works, all of those at The College Loop. But again, with all of that being said, let us know where you're going to be at for A-Day, because again, we are going to be there. So if you want to meet up or you want to see us, we'll be around the place, and trying to figure out all the details going on around that. But with all that being said, thank you for tuning in. War Eagle, and this has been the College Loop Podcast.